I think that there is a loneliness epidemic. Loneliness is definitely something that's universal but not really talked about. And it's interesting because a lot of people describe themselves as outcasts. But if everyone's an outcast, doesn't that mean that everyone is technically left out? So it kind of made me think about my past. And it was really hard for me not to equate loneliness with being alone. I actually had a pretty tough time with making friends. As social as I am and extroverted as I am, I felt like I wasn't liked for who I was. And that made me feel like no one wanted to be my friend. Like no one enjoyed me genuinely, like me being myself. So it made me shameful and embarrassed to be alone. So in order to protect myself, I decided to reject them. I didn't want them to reject me. So if they left me out, I would just block them entirely and kind of put myself in a position where it's like, I'm gonna be a loner by choice, so then I don't have to get hurt by you. So growing up, I used to be a competitive swimmer. So I used to swim 2 times a day, 2 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night. And it was kind of insane, but it was pretty ironic that I didn't have a friend group or felt like I belonged in the swimming community, even though I saw the same people like 5 hours a day. I think eventually I started to feel embarrassed about not having friends because I based my value as a person as how much I was able to make others happy. Because I was so scared of being rejected, I just kind of stayed on my own and thought that this would be best. Just out of fear, I guess. I think I had a longing to belong somewhere. In high school, and even like a little bit of college, I never had a friend group where I was like, hey, let's go to this cafe impromptu, or let's go on this trip. It was definitely a little bit hard because I had individual friends, but not a friend group. That kind of changed when I was in college, maybe sophomore year and onward. Was able to come to God and was able to find a friend group in InterVarsity, which was awesome. I had the best time of my life and found 2 of my best friends who became my bridesmaids. Those were basically my formative years where I was able to learn a lot about friendships, how to resolve conflict, and just to learn how to love others who are very different from me. And in college, those were a really good 3 years, I guess, because that was when I was in InterVarsity. And then came graduation. Post-college, there's no more dorms, no more campus life, no more convenient times when we're all going to go to the same event. So this meant that it was kind of like a free-for-all. Everyone had the freedom and flexibility to hang out with whomever, but that also meant that you had to be 10 times more intentional than you were in college. And for me, I started to crave that attention and friends again, and I started to dive into Facebook because Little Asian Trade started to make my post and ask me if they want to hang out. It was one of the most exhausting times of my life, but still very fun. I met up with like 20 different new girls and was able to hang out with them for like a good few months, but like 1 or 2 stuck. And that was it. It was a good time, but I definitely felt myself retract a little bit into the mindset where I was more valuable if I had more friends. So let's roll back 6 years ago in 2020. Because of COVID, I had to work remotely, and I continued to feel restless being alone. Like, I didn't necessarily feel like an outcast anymore, but it definitely was really hard to stay home and not see friends or hang out with them. And when I worked remotely, I felt pretty restless and antsy. I didn't get to see a lot of people, so as an extrovert, it made me feel like I didn't have much energy, and it made me just feel very lethargic. It was still kind of hard because I had individual friends and not really a friend group, so it was always me initiating with those certain plans with others, trying to see if they can meet up during these amount of times. But it almost felt like I was compensating for the time I had alone and just trying to be as busy as I could. Because I worked remotely for a few years, I convinced myself like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at being alone. So I tried to go on this Seattle solo trip. It was so hard to find to do things just alone. And I was horrible at being alone. So I asked my then fiance to join me, and he came on the trip and ended up being pretty good. So after my solo trip, on the way home, I was kind of thinking about how jealous I was of introverts, their ability of not needing to spend time with others or bug others to have fun or gain energy. And I think this is just one of the burdens of being an extrovert. Eventually, as I was able to find some pastimes like vlogging, like I am doing now, rock climbing, cooking, and even just like cleaning the house, in the end, I started to realize that these small things made me feel more comfortable with being alone, even if I'm doing like tasks and not always alone in my thoughts, because I kind of felt productive. I felt happy. I felt like I was doing something, and I'm still kind of navigating this, but I do feel like I'm a lot better headspace than I was before. And being alone doesn't mean that you're lonely. And I think that it can be a choice, but it's also a very critical journey that I think that a lot of people need to go on. Not everyone, but when you're alone, I think that's when your most formative transformation comes in this journey, where you get to learn more about yourself, what you like and what you don't like, what works out for you, what doesn't, and learning to listen to your thoughts and love yourself for that. What's kind of interesting is that in therapy, I also talked to my therapist about how I see things very black and white. So it's either right or wrong. And I equated this type of mindset with having friends. So if I was surrounded by people, I was happy and I was a good person. But if I was a loner, that meant that I was annoying people or burdening others, and therefore I was a bad person. So I equated my emotions and feeling of being joyful on whether I was or wasn't being a good person. So I think this related a lot back to when I was younger and how I rejected others because they rejected me. Because I was not making others feel good about themselves or happy, that made me a bad person. But transitioning into like my time at university, I was able to include others, be friends with them, be joyful. That made me a good person. There's just kind of this area where I was just fighting in between black and white and be like, which person am I today? And it was kind of exhausting. After some time, I was able to have more grace for myself, a lot more patience, and areas for me to grow with gratitude. I found that you can be in a gray spot, and that place is called being content for me. And that means I don't need to be sad to be alone. I don't need to be happy to be with others. And I can enjoy the times where it's quiet or look forward to the times where I see my friends next, even if it isn't planned. It almost took me 2.5 decades to say this. I learned to love myself, both me presently and outcast Leese, and everything that kind of came in between. I've learned that it's not embarrassing to be alone. It's nothing to be ashamed of because everyone goes through it, but it's not something that everyone flaunts or showcases. I think being alone is actually something that's very powerful and something that everyone should try, especially when how uncomfortable it is, because it's almost like embracing my fear into something that's very beautiful. Loneliness does not mean you're alone. Being lonely does not mean that others don't like you. And being lonely does not mean you are a bad person. If this video kind of resonates with you, I would urge you to just continue to try to tell yourself nice things and for you to hold on to those people who make you feel beautiful, who make you feel loved. Because if you just continue to be yourself, you will find your people, you will find your tribe. I think that when you find love for yourself, you'll find love for others and those people who will treasure and adore you for you. If this resonated or helped any of you who are feeling lonely post-college or any season of life, it makes me happy. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next week. Bye.